सीताराम येचुरी जी।
जी बहुत धन्यवाद उपसभापति जी। मैं क्योंकि अभी तक शरद यादव जी ने हिंदी में बोला, मैं अंग्रेजी में बोल लेता हूं। हाँ, ताकि फिर समय का पाबंदी ना हो। 23 मिनट का। Sir, I rise here, all of us know that the Honorable President delivers an address conventionally to the Parliament every year, which is a script that is approved by the Cabinet, and he just reads out that script. That is why normally the Honorable President is very fond of using 3 Ds to describe the parliamentary democracy in our country. He often says that there should be debate, discussion, and then a decision, and not disruption. That is his very fond philosophy. 4 Ds is what he uses. But unfortunately, the irony lies is that he read out a speech in which there are also 4 Ds. But these are not the Ds that he is fond of. And these 4 Ds, sir, are deception, disruption, diversion, which are leading up to a diabolic agenda being unfolded. So I'd like to dwell on these 4 Ds that are contained in this rather long 80-paragraph address that the Honorable President has delivered. But before I come to the content of this Honorable President's speech, sir, let me refer to the fact that there have been 2 references that are made to very eminent and very influential personalities of Indian culture and history. One is to the philosopher, saint philosopher Ramanujacharya. The reason why I think I should just refer to this is the fact that Ramanujacharya is one of those whose philosophy laid the foundations for the Bhakti movement in our country. A philosophy where he replaced the devotion to rituals as a devotion to a God for the realization of spiritual fulfillment. And what does he say? Discursive thought is necessary in humanity's search. Please note, discursive thought is necessary in humanity's search for ultimate varieties, or verities, to be more precise. Now he chose his God as Vishnu, and the king of the Chola Empire then, a king called Kulatunga, sorry, with my apologies to our Kulatunga. He banished Ramanujacharya because Kulatunga was a king and the official religion was Shaivism, while he chose Vishnu and therefore Vaishnavism. And that banishing the thing is an important point which must be noted in the background of his own philosophy. That because of a certain belief of yours, you're banished from that kingdom. What we are seeing today in our country is precisely that. If you do not believe in my God, then you are not part of India. And if that is the sort of a invocation that you're doing, Ramanujacharya is not the person which the president had to refer to. It should have been Kulatunga. Because that is exactly the atmosphere that is being built up in our country today. That is the first point, or the first D that I was talking about, of deception. The second, sir, Mr. Jairam Ramesh is always overawed and disappointed that the CPM leaders invokes all this system. But remember, CPM leader is a communist who believes that all that we have today is the product of human labor. And that human labor is my labor, because that's why I'm a communist. So all this is my heritage, sir. So I have as much right to invoke all this. So therefore, sir, that is again an irony. That is again an irony. Bilkul sahi. Again an irony, sir. My honorable minister, Mr. Ravi Shankar, has actually pointed out a very correct fact. That all the Rams are here in the opposition. No one there. There is not one Ram. There is one.
He's Ram Lalla. One Ram is coming. One Ram is coming.
So therefore, that apart, sir. Then, sir, the second is Guru Gobind Singh. Now, Guru Gobind Singh, one of the most venerable leaders of the Sikh religion, the Sikh Panth of India, of what he contributed, all of us know. But remember, sir, he was the one who founded the Khalsa Wani, the Anandpur Sahib thing, the foundation of the Khalsa. And the slogan that he gave, that Vahe Guru ka Khalsa, Vahe Guru ki Fateh. Now, on that basis of that slogan, the Khalsa Panth, and he finalized the Granth Sahib and said that is the eternal Guru. There are no more Gurus to come. And that whole thing that he established was based on five Ks. Please remember. And what were these 5 Ks? The Kesh, the Kada, the Kanga, the Kachira, and the Kirpan. Now, all of us, know this history, or if you not, I would only beseech them to try and understand this history, because it's a very important development in in Indian philosophy and in history. But as far as the Kirpan is concerned, and he was asked, why are you giving the Kirpan now? What was his answer, sir? I'm quoting, to defend himself and the poor, the weak and the oppressed, from all religions, castes and creeds, unquote. All form of religious oppression, all form of caste oppression, all form of oppression that we find in this country, to defend the Khalsa Panth, to defend humanity from this, the Kirpan is one of the necessities of a Khalsa. Now today what do we have, sir, in our country? Again, therefore I say in irony, why Guru Gobind Singh has been invoked, where the Kirpan was meant to defend the poor and the oppressed from religious persecution, to defend the poor and the oppressed from caste persecution. Instead today, we have a new announcement now, I'll come to that point later, that they will have, what was announced in the Uttar Pradesh, in line up to the Uttar Pradesh elections, is anti-Romeo squads. Instead of protecting the oppressed, I'll come up to these squads that are coming up later. Instead of protecting the oppressed, you just heard my senior friend Sharad Yadav speaking about what has been happening to the Dalits and the tribals and to the OBCs. Instead of protecting the oppressed, what we have on the contrary is that during the course of the last year that the President dwelt in his balance sheet of the government's work, in the last year, this 1 year, there have been greater atrocities on them. It's not protection. It has been greater atrocities with official patronage that is happening in our country. And that is why, once again, invoking Guru Gobind Singh is very, very ominous, and it is completely doesn't match with what has been the experience of the country in the last 1 year. That is why I say, sir, these 2 invocations are not merely ironic, but this is part of the philosophy of deception that this government has been practicing. Now come to the second D, sir, that I was talking about, which is your disruption. What we have seen in the course of 1 year, not only with this demonetization, which of course is the biggest disruption that has happened to our country, to our life, to our economy. It has actually disrupted the normal existence of a vast majority of our people and their day-to-day livelihood. We have been through this debate earlier, sir. I can only today say that with that all the points that were made earlier in the debate, what I myself have made here, that none of the 4 points that the Honorable Prime Minister said the reason for this demonetization were achievable then. And now out of practice we see that they have not been achieved, but the contrary. Many things have actually been endorsed and legalized. Why do you say this? There's more money than what was demonetized that is coming into your banks today. What does that mean? That all your black money that was held as stock in the country, all the black money held as stock in the country has now been converted into white. All the illicit counterfeit money that you have in our country has been legalized. Now, what was the objective? You said that will reduce your terrorist funding. After your surgical strikes, the number of our Jawans who are sacrificing their lives to defend us, while we are proud of them and we salute them, the number of them who lost their lives in terrorist attacks has doubled. in these 3 months than compared to 3 months earlier. And corruption. We have just heard Mr. Sharad Yadav telling us about the levels of corruption. And now the common denominator for corruption transactions has been increased from 1,000 rupees to 2,000 rupees. So the rate is only double. And therefore, like you say, there have been so many intermediates. So none of these have been achieved. But then in the process, the agony of the people, there's not a mention of the more than 100 people who died wanting to withdraw their own money. The Constitution of India today, sir, gives the right to property. The money in the banks is our individual property. That right has been violated by this. And those who wanted to exercise that right have lost their lives. Not one mention. Outside there are references saying when a big yajna takes place, जब एक बहुत बड़ा यज्ञ होता है तो आहुति होती है. I mean, South Indian pronunciation, you ahuti hoti. You sacrifice for the sake of a big yajna. So these innocent people's deaths are passed away as brushed aside as sacrifice of people for something big that is being achieved. And what is it that you've achieved, sir? When I say disruption, it's actually leading up to destruction. Not only disruption, if you are not taking up some concrete countervailing action now. 45% of our GDP is contributed by our informal, what is called the informal economy. Nearly 80% of our employment is generated in that informal economy. And that informal economy is almost 100% on the basis of cash transactions. All that has been disrupted. Crores of Indian people have been put to unnecessary suffering as a result of this, and we've seen the assessments that were made. We ourselves have said how international agencies have said the impact of that will be on our GDP. What our former Prime Minister, former Finance Minister, former Governor of the Reserve Bank, I think there's only one individual in the whole of India who has served in those three capacities. And he, with all that wisdom, has said at least 2 percentage points it'll fall the GDP. And forget the veracity of what you want to do. The fact is that there is an economic slowdown. That even the government's own economic survey recognizes. Informal sector. Your retail trade has fallen in the first 2 months by as much as 75% is the fall of your retail trade. I have personally witnessed, sir, we all witnessed in Delhi, farmers coming from nearby with onions in their tractors and trailers and selling them at 10 rupees a kilo, and some of them dumping. In Raipur, I was there for a meeting, and you had the farmers coming and distributing tomato free. So I had to ask one of them, why are you distributing it free? He said, if I want to destroy it, I'll spend more money. So it's better that I become benevolent, I'll go and give it free. And the farmers today, where the harvesting has been done, they are selling their harvest, the crop, for 1/2 of the minimum support price. Nobody is there to procure it because there is no cash to give it to the farmers. So the farmers are selling their produce at 1/2 the minimum support price. Your small vegetable owners from fishermen, you come from a state, sir, where bulk of your economy, a substantial contribution is made by fishermen. Now, without cash transactions, you know what happens to the fish they catch. The family can't survive that day. The fish will rot. And the entire consequential multiplier effects will take place in the economy. Now, I'm only giving you some of these examples. If that is there with your informal sector, with your agriculture, reverse migration of your agricultural labor from Punjab and Haryana now at the peak season, because they can't employ them. And then, what is happening to your manufacturing industry? Every sector in manufacturing industry has shown a drop in their sales and their production. Two-wheelers has dropped by 35% in the 3 months of this demonetization. Prime Minister's constituency, the famous Banaras Sari, that is selling at one half the price today. Because the people are not coming and actually placing the contracts for those saris. And what is worse, the Prime Minister yesterday, I think, or day before, at Meerut, he was talking about the sports material being produced in Meerut. And he said, with your sports material, our country gets laurels in all the international sports events. And what is the report from there, sir? 20% business is down in your sports good industry. Half the people have been laid off jobs. Now I can go on. I have a whole list of all the sectors that are there in the country where this has been badly affected. And the net result of this is what? A growth in unemployment, a massive surge in unemployment. Last year it was admitted here, to answer to a parliamentary question, that the 8 core industries in 2015 generated only 1.35 lakh crores of jobs. The same 8 crore, now the Labour Bureau tells us, 8 core industries, the Labour Bureau tells us there is a minus 55,000 jobs in that registered employment in these 8 core industries. Leave alone the informal economy. This is the formal organized economy. And if this is what it is happening, and it is on the basis of this that your economic survey had said that in order to get out of this impact of demonetization, what is required is to vastly expand our domestic demand, that is vastly expand the purchasing power in our hands of our people, which means vastly expand public investment. Economic survey's recommendation. And what does the budget do? Instead of expansion, it contracts the Indian economy. Just look at these telling figures. The size of the budget is a contraction from last year's budget of 13.4% of our GDP to 12.7%. The budget itself is contracted as a proportion of your GDP. And then what is your capital expenditure? It's come down from 1.86% of your GDP to 1.84 this year. I'm giving you as a percentage of GDP because that's much more, not merely informative, more accurate in order to understand. Then you've been announcement made that we are doing so much of allocations to various projects. And those various projects announcement, Rega was one of those saying that we are allocating the highest ever allocated by any government for MNREGA. 48,000 that you announced as the allocation is 600 crores more than what was spent last year, which is 47,400. So what is this great boost that you're talking of giving to employment? So the net result is even allocation for agriculture as a percent of GDP has come down from 1.98 to 1.95. Remember, sir, 1 percentage point of GDP is about 1.5 lakh crores. Am I right? 1.5 lakh crores. I'm taking Mr. Chidambaram's approval because he's an authority on this. So 1.5 lakh. So a reduction of 3 points in the GDP means a huge amount of money. Now, if this is what is happening with the economy, on the other hand, what have you done? Economic survey says expand your purchasing power, domestic demand. You have decreased your revenue from indirect taxes by 20,000 crores, which means relief to the rich. You have increased your indirect tax collections by 75,000 crores, which is greater burden on the consumer, on the common man. So instead of having greater disposable income to buy something so that our demand can expand, this whole budget is contracting your domestic demand further, which means heaping greater miseries on top of the demonetization that you have brought about. So this, I think, sir, is where the disruption of the economic story of India is actually happening. And if this is happening, sir, there's one element of this which, since Mr. Shahzad has spelled out in detail, I'm not repeating it, but I must refer to it because this is really telling. The other day, the Honorable Prime Minister spoke of that his and his party's fight in Uttar Pradesh is against what he called scam. He was referring to political parties, scam. So SCAM. But what he's doing to the country is actually fighting against a scam of what where the SC and M mean different things. SC stands for scheduled categories and M for minorities. This is the battle that the Prime Minister and this government is conducting against scam. This is against SC, ST and minorities. Look at the budgetary allocations. 1.48% of the budget, not GDP, 1.48% of this budget is for SC, has been allocated for SC programs. 1.48. 2.44% as what has been allocated for ST development. For minority welfare, there is only mention of various things, no substantial increase in terms of whatever recommendations of Sachar Committee and Ranganathan Mishra Committee, etc., none of them is going to see the light of the day. Sir, that compare it to, I'm sorry, Honorable Minister intervened, so I yielded for that. And I understand, Naqvi Sahab, understand your own emotional sentiments also concerning this issue. But what has been allocated is nowhere near what is required to achieve implement the recommendations of that. For women, sir, the allocation of the budget, all these are proportion of the budget. For women, it's only 5.3%. 50% of our population is women. So what are we doing, sir? You say demographic dividend, that should be an asset for our country. 2/3 of our country below the age of 40 already. Till 2020, this will increase further. Instead of converting that into an asset by providing them with education, jobs and health, we are converting them into a liability. That will be a millstone on the whole country, and it's something that is completely unacceptable. And that is exactly what these policies are all leading up to. And then you take a model posture of electoral funding. He says reduce from 20,000 to 2,000. So I'll give you 10 more names for the same 20,000. So that's all you want. So whom are we fooling, sir? Sir, if you please tell me, let the Prime Minister, let the BJP President explain one rally where they claim 10 lakh people came. Officially, the party claims that we hired 10,000 buses. 10,000 buses. Apart from various helicopters, various things, where did this money come from? You don't know, I don't know. Because there is no ceiling on the expenditure of political parties. You have ceiling on expenditure of candidates. But political parties can spend as much as they can, and finally you give an account. You file a return saying that this is what the case, that's it. So if you really want to curb political corruption, bring the expenditures of political parties under a ceiling. Why are you not? Why are you resisting that? If you really want to curb political corruption, ban corporate funding to political parties directly. Let the corporates fund, and they should fund. If necessary, bring a law. Like the CSR, social responsibility, bring a law for fund for democracy. Let them fund, and let that fund be administered by the Election Commission or the government, and put in place a system for state funding of elections that we have discussed a number of times in our electoral reform agenda. Right from Inderjit Gupta committee report downwards, we have been discussing this. Many countries in the world practice state funding. So do that. Unless you take such measures, there is no way you can stop the influence of money power and only paying lip service and moralistic rituals. All this is meaningless. So therefore, this is eventually leading up to a situation, sir, where this disruption of our economy is only going to make matters worse regarding one aspect, that is widening inequalities. In 2004, when this government assumed office, 1% of Indian people, 1% of Indian people held 49% of our GDP. 1%. Today, that 1% in 2016 holds 58.4% of our GDP. That is nearly a 10% jump in the incomes and the wealth of the rich, and the immiserization and the wreckage of the lives of the poor. That is what this trajectory is, and that is why I say that this is a major disruption that has been caused in our country by them. But why this demonetization now if all the objectives have failed? Very clear now, shift to a digital economy. Every digital transaction carries a cost, and that cost is a bonanza for profit maximization of your foreign capital and also your Indian capital. 100 rupee note, sir, if it travels 1 lakh transactions, the value of that 100 rupee note will still remain 100 rupees. But if these lakh transactions are done through digital medium, with a 2% charge for every transaction, or even a 1% charge for every transaction, it is now 2.5, I think, for 2. So if you take 2.5% for every transaction, 100 rupee note transacting 1 lakh times would mean a profit of 2.5 lakh rupees. Value remains the same 100 rupees. So what are you doing? Giving the bonanza of profit maximization for these companies, bulk of which are foreign companies. Internationally today, 3 major companies, there may be some others, but who handle your credit cards and debit cards, that is Visa, MasterCard and American Express. And if these are the ones who are going to benefit out of this, what is the meaning of this? And this, sir, ties in with the reduction of India as a strategic ally, a subordinate strategic ally of the United States of America. And this is happening when Mr. Trump has become the president. And the present government seems to be very happy. Fine, we wish anybody who wins an election, we wish them. That's a novel practice. But wishing them should not translate into being, ecstatic about saying that. Eagerly waiting when we will be invited to visit there. And what is he doing with our Indians, sir? There are 5 lakh Indian students there. Youth, not students. Youth working mainly in your IT sector, who are there on these H-1B visas, and whose existence there has become completely tenuous, complete state of uncertainty. Not one word from the government saying that we'll protect their interests. Our Indian-born people there, they are being harassed, and you see reports every day of somebody being picked up and taken up for questioning, apart from everything else that is happening in the United States of America. Now, if that is happening to us Indians, your status as a subordinate ally of that USA, joining in joint naval exercises in South China Sea along with USA and Japan, what is the signal you are giving to the world? That you are today a junior partner of USA in terms of containment and in terms of their hegemony over the Asia-Pacific region? Is that in our country's interest? Now, these are issues that are coming up, and if this is actually happening in order to save our banks, the banks have been looted, and the banks have become vulnerable because of the loot that has happened through the NPAs. If you add the interest today, the existing NPAs amount to 11 lakh crores of rupees. 11 lakh crores. What have we done through demonetization? You have withdrawn 15-point-some lakh crores of rupees, and you have injected some 5 lakh crores of rupees of new notes. So what have you done? 10 lakh crores of rupees you have given to the banks as their cash surpluses. The banks that were collapsing because of these NPAs, through demonetization, they are now standing on their feet. Then what did you do? Those who looted the banks go away scot-free. We've been asking for, since time immemorial, if they do not pay back their loans, you get after a small farmer. If you don't return the note, you confiscate the cattle, you confiscate his properties, his land. But when the big fish don't return, there's no way of confiscating their properties. Now they have said, if they go abroad, we'll do something. So now you are giving them an incentive. You please go abroad. Then we'll see what can be done. So, sir, I mean, please, I'll bear with me 2 minutes. So,
Try to conclude also. Try to conclude also.
yes, sir, absolutely. Sir, only last session, it was announced 1.12 lakh crore has been waived of NPS. All that is required, sir, former finance minister is here. 78,000 crores is what he waived for the farmers then, about 10 years ago. I mean, all that is, your farmers' rate of suicides has gone up by 26%. Demonetization, they are today totally burdened by this debt of theirs. Waive those loans, no, for the welfare and prosperity of India, rather than the loans of the rich, who have the assets but they don't pay back the banks, which is your money, my money. What is happening today in India, sir, is not that when banks are collapsing, there's a bailout package that was announced by the USA and all other Western countries. In India today, what you're doing is a bail-in package. You are making common people not withdraw their own money from the banks and thereby bail out the banks and thereby even exonerate those who looted the banks. So that is why, sir, this is a very serious matter, and I'm very disappointed that the Honorable President's speech does not reflect any of this reality. On the contrary, I've gone through this whole thing very meticulously. There are 1 dozen Pradhan Mantri Yojanas that have been listed from last year to this year. Can I read them outside? It'll be interesting for us as a compilation for everybody. Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Prayojana, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Maitravi Abhiyan, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Yuva Yojana. Then the 10th one, Pradhan Mantri Khanij Kshetra Kalyan Yojana. Repackaging. 11वीं, Pradhan Mantri Urja Ganga Yojana. Then 12वां. These are the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. These नहीं ये 12 इसमें गिनाया 12 इसमें गिनाया उन्होंने और इसके आधार पर वो कह रहे हैं कि हम देश की बड़ी तरक्की कर रहे हैं. तो इसलिए सर इस सब पे तो अमेंडमेंट्स तो हमने मूव किया. जिन लोगों की अब जो गुजर गए उनके बारे में अब जिक्र भी ना करना, उनके लिए मुआवजा देना वो बात छोड़िएगा. लेकिन finally the last point that I want to come to, that all these 3 Ds, that is deception, disruption and diversion, should not lead up to a 4th D like the Honorable President used to remind us. The debate, the discussion and decision of parliamentary procedure should not lead to disruption. These 3 should not lead to the 4th D, which is the diabolic agenda that is being unfolded. And that is of serious concern for me. And I think for you, for the entire House, of this August House, and for the country. As I mentioned earlier, you had now the announcement of an anti-Romeo squads. You have the cow protection squads, cow protection vigilantism, which has claimed the lives of Dalits in Una, which has claimed the lives of 2 youth who were hanged to death when they were taking the cattle to a fair in Latehar in Jharkhand, which has claimed the death of Akhlaq, who was lynched in Dadri on the allegations of storing beef. You have the Sri Ramaseda, another squad that is moral policing in the country and saying that telling us how women should behave. In UP now you say we want to protect the women, therefore the anti-Romeo, squads. You had now, sir. Now the latest is a very, very eminent film director and producer in our country, Sanjay Leela Bhansali. He is attacked for so-called distortion of history. Now who's got the authority over history, that we do not know. You had earlier the attacks on Amir Khan and Shah Rukh Khan. You had the intolerance that we saw, the killing of Dabholkar, Pansare and Kalburgi. And you have this intolerance growing, saying that art cannot hurt the religious sentiments of the people. What is the logic of the right to, our right to information in our constitution, sir? What is that logic? Why is that right there? The right is there only for those people as work of fiction. Work of fiction can rewrite history, can rewrite mythology. And much of the mythology today that is passed off in history is actually fiction. And today now you say that you cannot do it, that intolerance that is growing. And that is the diabolic project that is actually unfolding today. The diversion, last point, the diversion that is talking about, I'm suddenly reminded, sir, looking at the thing, of Mr. Manmohan Desai, a very famous film producer, whose every other film used to be a Silver Jubilee or a Golden Jubilee hit. So he was once asked, the final days of his life, and I think that is why he confessed. He was once asked in one of those old, very famous magazines called the Illustrated Weekly, which doesn't exist anymore. In the last of his interview, he was asked, what is the success of your films? Why is it that every film of yours is a Jubilee hit? Then he said, in the final day, he said, the success lies in one fact. He said, what is that? He said, whenever people come to see my film in a theater, from the beginning till the end of the film, the people should not think. If the people think, the film is a failure. People should be taken off into a non-thinking mode, and that is this government's practice. One jumla after another, one after another, one after another. And before anybody can forget one thing, another new one. At a point is not let the people think, and therefore continue with your diabolic agenda. And what is that agenda? And that agenda, now that again construction of Ram Temple is back on the agenda in UP, and that agenda is actually the effort to transform the secular democratic Indian Republic as enshrined in our constitution into what they call their version of a theocratic, rabidly intolerant Hindu Rashtra, which is what is the RSS fascistic project. That diabolic agenda is something that India as we know of it cannot afford. That is something till the last drop of blood in me and in all of us, we will continue to defend, and we will continue to defend, and therefore this deception, disruption, diversion, which is the essence of this President's address, should not be allowed to lead to the unfolding of the diabolic agenda. And that is what I beseech this entire August House, that before we return the motion of thanks, that adequate changes be made so that this sentiment is conveyed to the Honorable President, and that is my final beseeching to the House. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.